It is 10:03. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. A report last night from Andy Strickland out of St. Louis stated the Nashville Predators are actively shopping star forward Filip Forsberg, who is on track to have a career season with 44 points and is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. Now, that was followed up by a report from NHL Network analyst David Pagnotta saying this will probably come as quite the surprise to Forsberg and his reps, as the Preds have been expected to get contract talks going with them in the near future. All of this happening on Pekka Rinne Day as the Preds host the Dallas Stars in Bridgestone Arena tonight, and they will hang the number 35 in the rafters for the legendary goaltender who retired at the end of last season. Rinne will be the first player to have his number retired in franchise history. Puck drop tonight is at 7:30. Of course, the Preds will take on the Tampa Bay Lightning in Nissan Stadium for the NHL Stadium Series on Saturday night. The Tennessee Titans signed an outside linebacker Wednesday in Justin Lawler, who has 19 games of NFL experience with the LA Rams after being drafted in 2018 in the 7th round out of SMU. College baseball, the Vandy boys blanked Evansville at home on Wednesday, a 9-0 win to improve to 2-2, and Tennessee remained unbeaten with a 16-1 win over UNC Asheville. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning. Welcome in on this Thursday. Weather sucks, but I hope you're feeling right, living well. Hope we're going to be able to get you through these rainy 3 hours today. Lucas Panzica is behind the scenes. He's making the show go. Be happy to have you guys involved this morning. 615-737-1045. We got a lot to talk about today. Got some interesting guests. Going to switch it up a little bit. How about some Lady Vols and Nashville SC? Get to that later on as well. But I want to start with some reports that came out right about the time I was wrapping up my primetime show last night regarding Filip Forsberg and the Nashville Predators. Now, there's probably going to be an inordinate amount of Preds talk today, given that Pekka Rinne night going to be very exciting, something that the Nashville Predators have never done before in their history, retiring the jersey of a player, and one who absolutely deserves to have his jersey retired against a good divisional opponent, the Dallas Stars. It'll be a fun game at Bridgestone Arena tonight. But amidst all that, you have this report that comes out from Andy Strickland, as you heard in Lucas Panzica's update, hearing the Preds are actively shopping superstar Filip Forsberg. So, that is a move of significant consequence. That is something that when you talk about guys who are difference makers on this Preds team, nobody is having a better season than Filip Forsberg right now. He's been spectacular. This is a career year for him, and it happens to come at a time when they are currently exploring contract renegotiations. Now, Lucas, you brought up the name of somebody from NHL.com, did you say, that was tweeting about the conversation between, or what would likely catch Forsberg's representation by surprise? Who was that name?
David Pagnotta, an analyst of the NHL Network and also Sirius XM NHL, at the fourth period on Twitter says this will probably, he quotes Andy Strickland's report, says this will probably come as quite the surprise for Forsberg and his reps, as the Preds have been expected to get contract talks going with them in the near future.
Do you know that if you're actively seeking Preds coverage right now, because my first reaction was, all right, how does this actually have legs, right? Because this would be a very, very uncharacteristic move. They're not sellers at this point. They're not. I mean, they've had a little bit of a slide since the All-Star break, but this is still a hugely competitive roster as currently constructed. You got something, honestly, since the All-Star break, it's weird watching them, right? And again, admittedly, I wasn't watching a ton of Preds during football season, catching up after the fact, but when you catch the odd game, particularly since the All-Star break, they don't seem to gel quite as well together as they initially were. I don't know how to scientifically describe that, but that's just a general, untrained eye observation.
Yeah, they cooled off certainly after the All-Star break, lost 4 straight, but they won a battle against a very good Florida Panthers team on the road to maybe set the tone for this week. I mean, that's a grueling stretch. At Florida, at home against Dallas, which is always a battle, and then you're playing the defending Stanley Cup champs on Saturday in Nissan Stadium in the Tampa Bay Lightning. But this would go against what Poyle has typically done in the past whenever these discussions pop up about dealing a certain player a key foundational piece. Roman Josi, Matthias Ekholm, Mike Fisher a few years ago. Those guys all got re-signed or extended. So it would kind of go against what we've seen from Poyle in the past for the most part when it comes to Preds stars.
So I was reading Alex Doherty, our Preds writer at A2ZSports.com this morning. He had a reactionary piece basically saying that this is more smoke than actual fire. David Poyle, this is a line from his article. David Poyle has said in the past that he always considers every option when managing his hockey club. Specifically on Forsberg, Poyle said in the last few weeks, the two sides are trying to get a deal done, but it's also a, quote, business transaction for both sides, which basically said, basically anything's on the table at this point. It's David Poyle's version of what John Robinson says anytime we ask him about roster upgrades at any particular position. We're just going to do what's in the best interest of the football team, right? So I do think, though, that to have this drop in a critical time in the season, right, we still have a good deal more hockey to play as they try and gut it out in the Central Division. But I think on to have this news drop when there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on Nashville, Tennessee, right? Because the guy that you're citing from SiriusXM, NHL, there's going to be a lot of. Where's the game being brought? Is it on NHL Network, or where is it? NBC? Where is it being broadcast?
That's
tonight?
a great question. I would think NBC, but let me look that up.
Yeah, because I'm curious to know. I imagine there's going to be a fair amount of scrutiny on the Nashville Predators tonight in the hockey world and in the sports world, because hockey and basketball are really kind of dominating the landscape right now. So
TNT.
So it's on national television.
Yes.
Do you like hockey on TNT, by the way?
Yeah, I think they do a good job.
I like that ESPN has the rights now. I like that. It just feels like hockey is more easily accessible. But to me, I was looking for more details on, okay, does this Forsberg thing have actual legs? And Adam Vingan, who covers the Preds for The Athletic, between him and Alex, there's really not a lot of other. I know Rexroad will write columns about the Preds, but as far as like in-depth hockey analysis is concerned, along with insight as somebody connected with the team, Vingan's been on paternity leave for like 2 months at this point. I feel like there's a massive knowledge gap as far as local coverage of the Nashville Predators is concerned, to where when, all of us start to turn our attention in the sports calendar towards the NHL, I'm sure a bunch of you have been going to Preds games throughout the entire course of this hockey season, or watching the odd Preds game, depending on who the opponent is, whether it's the Capitals and you got Laviolette back in the building, whatever, right? Now we are more focused on hockey as a part of where we are without football. And I think at this point, it was kind of frustrating to me. Like, I texted Vingan, he's got a kid. He's hanging out with his wife, his dog, his newborn child. And I was like, hey, help me understand what I'm looking at with this thing. Because I text him, I go, I know you're on paternity. Well, I hope I'm not betraying any public or any private confidences here. But I text him, I go, I know you're on paternity, but is this Forsberg thing real? He goes, I don't know. I'm unplugged. I'm just, I'm chilling.
Good for him.
I couldn't live that way. Are you kidding me? I could not live that way. Even on vacation, I'm glued to my phone. It's deeply unhealthy.
Not good.
Are you able to disconnect like that?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like super anxious anyway. My larger point being, there is not as much information. I don't have great reporting on the hockey team right now. Like, I appreciate Alex's columns. I value his insight and, more specifically, his knowledge of the game of hockey. Vingan does a great job breaking these things down. I mean, basically is a science. All the numbers at your disposal to help you measure exactly how good or bad a player is performing in any given stretch. But, I mean, there's a general lack of hockey resources out there when it comes to Preds coverage. That was very, very frustrating to me last night when I'm trying to figure out, is this St. Louis rinkside reporter who's out there with this? And I'm not trying to be dismissive of Andy Strickland. He seems to be very well connected. I'd not heard his name previously. That doesn't mean that he's not very, very good at his job. It doesn't seem like anybody locally has any idea of whether this thing is real. And there are plenty of times when Titans reporters, I'm a part of the group who gets scooped by Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport when big Titans news breaks. So far be it from me to throw stones from the glass house. But I was legitimately bothered by how little I could find about the hockey team as of late.
Well, this caught everybody off guard, it seemed, this report.
How can it? This is huge, right? I mean, is this not, what's the, like, help me put it in terms that I more understand, all right? Because admittedly, I'm not tied in the NHL the way that I am in football, right? There's just a different skill set there, or not necessarily a different skill set, but just a different a whole different branch of the tree. What would be the equivalent of, like, say John Robinson put Titans player X on the trade block? What is Filip Forsberg's equivalent? Like, how big of a consequence does moving, or the idea that they would be shopping Filip Forsberg, who is that akin to?
I would say Filip Forsberg's 27 years old. He's on an absolute tear. 26 goals this year. He's on pace to break Victor Arvidsson's single-season franchise record of 34 goals in a season. Like, for context, he has 3 more goals than Matt Duchene with 9 less games played. So I think, to be honest with you, I think it would be, because the conversation is this the best they're going to get out of Filip Forsberg? That's why you trade him, right? Because this is the best you're going to get. If that's your opinion of what he's doing this season, then you want to move to trade him. If you think he can still sustain this for a few more years, you want to extend him to a huge deal. I truly think it's comparable to saying Derrick Henry, let's say he's 28 years old this season. Let's say Derrick Henry rushes for 1,700 yards in 2022 and 14, 15 touchdowns.
And you're saying that's the best you're going to get out of Derrick Henry with 1 year left on his deal?
Yes, you're saying that you're not going to get better than Derrick Henry at 29 or older, and this is where you can maximize the capital that you can get by dealing Derrick Henry. I think if you have to draw a parallel to what we do with the Titans, in my mind, that's how it plays out.
He signed a 6-year, $36 million deal in, it doesn't have the transaction date on this. That can't be right. Oh, in 2016. Okay. Yeah. So he signed the 6-year deal in 2016. And this has been the most consistent stretch of hockey at a high level that we've seen. Filip Forsberg has always made incredibly impressive plays, but sometimes I don't want to say that he quite fades into the background, but it's not like he's been able to, it would be difficult, right, to play at that kind of level for a sustained amount of time, but that's really what he's done.
Well, injuries have disrupted him over the last few years. Since his big 30-plus goal burst, I want to say in 15-16, this has been his most consistent as far as being available and scoring at a high rate since that season, about 5-6 years
ago. So you
ago.
got a player, if we're going to draw parallels, akin to Derrick Henry being on the trade block, and nobody locally knows anything about if it's real or not?
I think NHL and NFL also are just totally different circumstances.
I find that difficult to process, I guess. Anyway, 615-737-1045. If you want to weigh in on the Filip Forsberg, on the idea, on the report that he's on the trade block, what does that mean for the Nashville Predators? Do you think that this is the best they're going to get out of him? Do you think this is the right time to move a superstar of that caliber, or at least the closest thing that your team currently has? We'll spend more time on the Preds, given that Pekka Rinne will have his jersey retired later tonight. Got some quarterback talk for you as well, because Aaron Rodgers refuses to get out of the news cycle. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back. 615-737-1045. You can jump in on the show if you like. Lucas looked at me like shocked when we went to commercial break. You want to let people behind the scenes?
That might be. We're coming up on 1 year anniversary of doing this show.
Yeah, next week.
That might be. Is it next week?
It is next week. Our first show was weird because I started on a Wednesday. I can't remember what I think I came in like they announced it on J. Martin Ramona, and then I did 3 hours of radio like right out the gate.
And Schaefer produced that. And I wasn't with you until day 2.
You weren't?
Right.
We'll have time to get like super self-involved and nostalgic and things like that. Anyway, keep on your train of thought. I think our first show was on March 3rd.
That might be the best Preds discussion we've had on this show.
I mean, you act like I can't do that. Like, I can do that if you want to talk Preds. It just, we never have an overwhelming reason to talk about the Nashville Predators, right? It's not like I'm completely incapable of carrying 12 minutes or 16, whatever it was, 16 minutes of. That's kind of what you alleged. That's kind of what that comment
That's how you read it, which says a lot.
Well, you catch me halfway through their season. Yeah, I'll talk hockey with you. I got you. So this report about the trading of not the trading of Filip Forsberg, but the idea that Filip Forsberg is is available for trade at this point. And it comes at a less than ideal time for the franchise because Pekka Rinne, as we sit here meeting with the media, he was at a luncheon yesterday. I think he met individually with reporters at some point yesterday as well. Like they're just running this guy through the ringer because they want all the Preds' goodwill. Rightfully so. And Pekka is also, I never worked with him personally other than I used to do some production for the Preds radio network, right when I first started working in Nashville. But he has always been exceedingly generous with his time. This comes, though, at a time when they're trying to talk about Pekka Rinne and all the great things, and this is the first Preds jersey that we're going to retire. And in the meantime, people are trying to figure out whether they're going to it's not a blow-it-up move to trade Filip Forsberg. It's thinking about longevity in a way that is probably 2 or 3 years down the road from fruition. If you're talking about draft capital and guys who are going to spend time in the AHL before they come up from Milwaukee and prospects that you're going to have to get to know and some young talent that you've had on the roster that you're trying to figure out. But you can interact with the show via the phone or the Zone TV chat. Andrew writes, it would be an absolute disaster for them to trade Forsberg, in my opinion. And yes, I'm yelling as he types that in all caps. For Noctropolis, I believe is the YouTube name. I say keep him as well, keep Forsberg as well. But also what I'm saying is once you pay the man, he will go back to his average numbers, not the numbers he is putting up this year. Man. This gets in, and you can have this conversation about any athlete about are you paying for future production or are you paying retroactively for the years, the statistics, and the effort that the player has given you on the front end? This is going to be a conversation with Harold Landry. This was the conversation around Corey Davis, Filip Forsberg, any sport, right? Are you paying for future heights that you think this athlete is going to be able to reach, or are you paying for what he's already given you? He or she has already given you, depending on the sport. This is something, it's completely nuked baseball, right? Now that they've gone so scientific with the analysis of extensions and free agent contracts, the average annual salary in baseball is going down? Going down because of the way that they figured, and this is why the negotiations have stalled out in the lockout the way that they have, because players, this is the whole Freddie Freeman thing. If you're talking about the Braves, right? Freddie Freeman wants security. He's 32 years old. He likely wants to retire in Atlanta, and he's probably a borderline Hall of Famer for what he's been able to do. And the whole idea that Freddie Freeman is probably not going to end up back in Atlanta because teams are getting smarter about how they pay people now. This is the same concept that's going to be applied to any contract negotiation in any sport. Now, in referencing that piece that my colleague at A to Z Sports, Alex Doherty, wrote, he put together a brief history of Preds bailing on contract talks under David Poyle. In the post-Trotz, he calls it the Stanley Cup contender era of the Nashville Predators. So what is that? When did Barry Trotz leave for Washington? Did he leave for Washington? He left for Washington, right?
Yes, and then he won the Cup with Washington. Now he's with the New York Islanders.
Right. So that happened in what year specifically? Remind me if you would. I know the Stanley Cup run was during the 2017 time. I know Trotz was here forever as the franchise's first head coach. I can't remember specifically what year that Laviolette replaced him. 2014
was Laviolette's first year. 2013-14 was the final year of the Barry Trotz era.
All right, so let's say 2015 to basically present, which is the Stanley Cup contender era of the Nashville Predators, with this core in place. Forsberg is a part of this because he signed that contract extension in 2016. 6 years, $36 million. There have been many situations like we see now with Forsberg, is what Alex is saying, where they've basically kind of bailed out on contract talks in the middle of with star players that they felt they needed to get deals done. In 2015, Mike Fisher, end of a 2-year contract extension that he signed in 2012. He was older. He was 31, still productive as a center, but no contract was signed before the season, basically leaving his return up in question. So they basically punted until after the fact and then resumed contract negotiations to keep Mike Fisher as a part of that core. He cites examples of when they were initially looking at trading Matthias Ekholm to the Jets. As Elliot Friedman reported, there was some situations with Ryan Ellis where they kind of stopped contract talks in 2018 when he was looking for his deal, and then he ended up signing an 8-year deal at the end of the 2018 season. So there's precedent for David Poyle and his front office doing business this way. I think it hits a little closer to home when you talk about how good Forsberg's been all season long, and the idea that there is such an emotional attachment to that guy because not only was he a part of the run, he was a part of the team that got you in position to make the Stanley Cup run, and he's been a part of the Nashville sports fabric ever since, handlebar, mustache, or not. 615-737-1045. Jonathan is Nashville. He wants to weigh in. Hello, Jonathan.
Hey, Buck. Hey, I'm just thinking, you mentioned Freddie Freeman with the Braves earlier in the show, and I liken this conversation to if the Braves were to put Freddie Freeman on the trade block before the deadline last year, when they were running middle of the pack in the National League East, well, do they go on to win the World Series? Like, the Preds are right in the middle of a playoff contention run right now in the middle of the pack. It makes no sense to me why the team would even consider shopping Filip Forsberg. It's basically like they're giving up on the season, with a difference maker like him. I'm curious what you have to say about that. Thanks.
This is the kind of, I guess it's what do you value, right? Because I think it depends on, and thank you for the call, Jonathan, 615-737-1045. I think it depends on your sensibilities as a sports fan. There are some people who are going to feel exactly that way. And I think the Freddie Freeman example is a good one for a variety of reasons. Now, the Preds are currently behind in the Central anyway, the Avalanche, the Blues, and the Wild in the standings at this point. Does it feel like they're giving up on the season if they trade him? I am always going to be in favor, regardless of the sport. In pro sports, this is possible. NCAA and college football and things of that nature are different. But if you consider your team to be in a position to compete for their respective championship, Stanley Cup, World Series, Super Bowl, whatever, Larry O'Brien Trophy, name the championship. If you think that you are in a window to be able to maximize your opportunities, I am of the opinion that you go all in for the championship every time you think it presents an opportunity to do so. Now, my job security is also not tied to whatever structure, whatever team decides to go all in to try and win a championship. We had this conversation about, can the Titans do what the Rams did during the NFL season? We're talking about a team with the trade deadline on the horizon who is still gutting it out in their own division, trying to get back or trying to get more secure in playoff position, and talking about the idea, or at least reported to be talking to other teams about what they can get for. I mean, is he their best player right now? Like, I know Jussi's been great in goal throughout the course of the season, but is Forsberg their best player?
Yes.
Over Jussi?
Yes. I believe so.
Is it close?
Which is funny to say because he did not go to the All-Star game. It was
but I mean,
Saros and Jussi.
Completely ridiculous that Roman Jussi did not go to the All-Star game.
No, Jussi did go. He ended up going.
He wasn't on the initial vote.
But Forsberg is playing at a superstar rate right now. I mean,
so he's their best player.
Yes. Jussi Saros raises their floor as a goaltender, but their ceiling is sky high if Forsberg can continue to play the way he is.
This core, I mean, I don't know what the longevity of the Preds as currently constructed is right now, right? These things are so difficult to predict in sports, especially in a postseason like hockey where it feels like you go through the regular season, you think you have most of the things figured out, and then you get to the postseason and the way that these series kind of play themselves out. And it's not always the best team that comes out on the other side in the way that the NBA and their playoff structure, it tends to be the better team that wins the best of series. Hockey, it feels like anything could go wild at any given point. I mean, for God's sakes, think about the Stanley Cup run. Who among us, even as the Preds were starting to get their problems ironed out, I mean, that was my third year living in Nashville. I've never seen anything like that in my life in sports. I've been to several Super Bowls. I've covered the NFL playoffs as a reporter, as a sports experience. I have never in my life seen anything like the Stanley Cup run in Nashville in 2017 because it lasted 2 months long. 2 months. And you've still got largely the bones of that in place. How far off they are from a team like the Avalanche or the defending champions in the Lightning, who's to say once the postseason begins? But you think that you have enough to at least make some noise in the postseason. I am not for the trading of Filip Forsberg. I think that Nashville hockey fans deserve the opportunity, and Forsberg, for everything that he's given them. It's tough to get caught up in the emotions of these conversations sometimes when they're all financial transactions, all business transactions. But I think that Preds fans and Filip Forsberg have earned the opportunity to let them try and see how much further they can get with what remains of this group. It's not all still there, right? I mean, you've gotten more out of Duchesne this season that you have in any other season that he's been in that uniform. Pekka Rinne is gone. He does not have a Stanley Cup on his resume, but now you still have the ability with above-average goaltending in net to continue to try and keep this thing alive with young players who have filled in admirably over the course of several years like Jussi Saros. So I am not for the selling off of parts if it means longevity. And again, for David Poile, the question is, well, what does the longevity look like? Who's making these decisions? For him, I would be shocked that this is even something under consideration, given where he is at this point in his career, which is fewer years left than, I mean, he's coming close to the end of his tenure is the most polite way to put it.
He's 27 years old.
No, I'm talking about David Poile.
Oh, I'm sorry. He is definitely not.
He's not 27 years old. In fact, might he be the exact opposite? Might he be 72? Poile's not in his 70s.
I don't know.
No way. He's not in his 70s.
What's your guess? What's your best guess?
Is he? Ooh, I'll say. I will say 68.
He's 72.
Whoa! Look at that. What a dumb game. 615-737-1045.
He just turned 72 on Valentine's Day.
This is where you were so proud of us for doing probably the best segment of Preds talk that we've done, and it devolved in, how old is Filip Forsberg? Oh, you switch it around? That's David Poile? Preds. Idiots. William is in Lebanon. Save us, William, please.
Well, I wish I could, but I think I lost that chance a long time ago.
Yeah, I get that.
The whole discussion about Forsberg, trade him, keep him, whatever. To me, the really bad part of it is why was it popped last night, and why is it what we're talking about today instead of what we should be talking about today for the Preds, and that's Pekka. I just wish, I know you can't do it, but I just wish you would say we're not taking any calls about this today. This is Pekka Day, and that's all we're going to talk about. It's just so detracting that the conversation is about Forsberg and not about Pekka. And that's all I got. Thanks.
Hey, William, you're probably not the only Preds fan that feels that way, right? And I hate that for people who want to appreciate, who want to just do nothing but revel in a great guy, an incredible athlete among his peers, not just in the city of Nashville, but across his extended amount of time in the NHL. And I mean, we could do that element of it today, but honestly, William, in talking about this with Lucas prior to the show, just again to let you kind of behind the scenes, not that we're any kind of hyper-professional, but we do like to plan a little bit ahead. Lindsay Rowley's going to be in studio with us tomorrow, and what I lack as far, because I have great memories of Pekka Rinne, just like you have great memories of Pekka Rinne. But I tend to lack the kind of emotional appeal that most people want out of a conversation like that. So when Lindsay's in studio with us tomorrow, after this game is played and after we see the way we all watch, if you're going to Bridgestone Arena tonight, if you're watching on television on TNT, we're going to talk about the Pekka Rinne experience tomorrow in more detail and the Stadium Series as well with Lindsay. I just felt like we were more equipped to have the "this is news, let's talk about it" portion of the conversation today and get a little sappy tomorrow because, everybody's going to be in their feels tonight.
It's unfortunate the news dropped the night or the report.
No, it's not
unfortunate.
But here's my thing. It's not unfortunate. Like, it's unfortunate if you're William and whomever else. I'm not saying that William is out on an island alone to himself, but, like, this is legit news. I'm seeking additional coverage. I can't find it anywhere because the best Preds reporter has been on 8 months of maternity leave, and I'm having to call my friend Vingan while he's hanging out with the mother of his child, his new baby, and his dog named Pretzel, and being like, what the hell is happening with this 27-year-old player who is supposed to be really, really good, and now they're shopping him. We'll get more of your calls on the other side. We're also going to be joined by Mickey Dearstone, who's retiring after, 30-plus years as the voice of the Lady Vols. An incredible story, an incredible career. Looking forward to catching up with Mickey coming up next. We'll get to more of your phone calls as well, though, on the other side. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Right side of the lane to Anisicki, off to Parker. Slam, jam, thank you, ma'am. That's 2 in one game.
That's Mickey Dearstone. That's the voice of Lady Vols. This man has had an incredible career. He's hanging up at the end of the season, and he's kind enough to jump on with us now here on 104.5 The Zone. Mickey, a pleasure to speak with you. Appreciate the time.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. It's an honor.
Well, yeah, an honor is probably a stretch, Mickey. It is more our honor to be able to speak with you. But I'm so interested in your career, Mickey, because this was not something, it seems like, just based on reading up on you a little bit and kind of following it from afar, it didn't feel necessarily like your plan, your goal in life was to become a radio play-by-play broadcaster, but you ended up being the voice for one of the most iconic programs in women's college basketball history.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting route. I actually started out in radio working for my father in Greenville, Tennessee, and he was a great play-by-play guy. And when I went to work for him, he said, I'll teach you everything I know, and then it'll be time for you to move on to a bigger market because small-town radio will make an old man out of you quick. And so I started doing high school basketball, both girls and boys, and we covered 4 county high schools the best we could with one little AM station. And then about 4 years after I worked for him, we went to lunch one day, and he reached in his pocket and handed me a layoff slip and said, it's time for you to go find you a job. Well, luckily, he had worked at WIVK before moving back to Greenville. And so I knew Bobby Denton and Ned Brantley and some of the others. And at the time, Bob Kessling was the sports director at IVK, and he actually gave me my first part-time job doing Saturday morning sports and covering high school football on Friday nights. And then when he left and went to the TV station, Channel 10, he came into the station one day, and he said, look, he said, I'm starting to do some work for Jefferson Pilot on TV. And he said, I've got a conflict with Lady Vol basketball. He said, do you know of anybody that could do it? And I said, well, I don't know anybody that has play-by-play experience. I said, Bob, I've done a lot of high school basketball, but I've never done college. And he goes, well, why don't you do it? Go give it a shot. So that was in 1991, and we split a lot of games, and I covered for him every time he had a conflict until 99. And then when John Ward stepped down and he took over for John, then I took over for Bob, and I just kind of fell into it. Didn't apply for it. I guess I auditioned for it and didn't know I was auditioning for it when I did it.
Now that's how you get some of the best jobs, Mickey. You know that, working in this industry. Mickey Dearstone, our guest here on 104.5 The Zone. I mean, you've seen this program at some of the highest of highs. I mean, championship seasons, 5 of Tennessee's 8 NCAA championships you've been on the call for. You've seen and called so many games, Mickey. I don't know if there are some that are among your favorites or some of the moments where you most were able to, in real time, kind of take a step back and realize what you were a part of. Is there one in particular or a couple in particular that kind of come to mind when I ask you that question?
Yeah, obviously the 5 national championships were the biggest games. But the one that has stuck out to me, and I remember it all the time, it was in the 96-97 season. They were coming off a national championship in 96. And in that 96-97 season, they lost 9 regular season games, and then they were eliminated from Auburn in the SEC tournament in the semifinals. So they had 10 losses. And I remember Pat Summitt, when the team got back to Knoxville, I remember Pat Summitt, and I heard this from more than one source. She got the team together, and she told them, she said, I'm tired of doing this. I'm tired of losing. I'm going to make you a promise. If you get me to the Final Four, I promise you we'll win it. Well, earlier that year, we went up to Norfolk, Virginia, and played Old Dominion, and Old Dominion beat us for the first time in a long time. And it just so happened the team got her to the Final Four. I don't think she slept for 3 days, and ended up playing Old Dominion in the championship game. And I'm telling you, it was the most prepared team I have ever seen in my life. They knew exactly what Old Dominion was going to do. when they were going to do it and who was going to be doing it. And they ended up winning the national championship. And right then I said, dang, I've just witnessed the best coach in college basketball.
It's so cool. It's so cool. It's been so cool to watch, and of course for those of us, I mean, we've got people of all different ages in the audience, all different eras of Lady Vols basketball. But just to hear you kind of articulate it, it means a little more. Now, obviously, there's only so many home games left, Mickey. I know they're going to honor you at the final home game on the 27th against LSU. A handful more games to go, including Mississippi State tonight at Thompson Bowling Arena. But I mean, with the work that you did, not just with Pat Summitt, with Holly Warlick, and now with Kelly Harper, to work with Pat that way and to see how Pat went about her job and understanding what a foundational cornerstone she is, not just in the world of Tennessee sports, but of sports in general. One of the greatest coaches that any of us have ever seen, regardless of which sport she was coaching. What kind of lasting impression does that leave on somebody like you?
A ton. And I think about it all the time. I'll go back to that same season that we beat Old Dominion in the championship game, and Pat's goal was to increase the fandom of women's basketball in particular and female sports in general. But she knew if she reached her goal and got it to where she thought it should be, that it was going to be a lot tougher for her to win national championships. And to give you an example, that 10-loss season, do you know the lowest ranking Tennessee had that year in losing 10 games? 11. That's the lowest ranking they had. Well, if you lose 5 games, 6 games now, you're down in the last 10 of the top 25. And if you lose 10 games, there's no way you're going to be in the top 25. So it's been really fun, and it's been really heartwarming to see a friend of mine accomplish what she wanted to accomplish in women's basketball and female sports.
He is Mickey Dearstone, longtime voice of the Lady Vols. He's hanging it up after this season. Mickey, it's been a pleasure to listen to your career. It's been a pleasure to have you on the radio show today. And thanks for everything that you've done for Vols fans. I know I speak for a lot of people when they say we just appreciate all the great work.
Well, I appreciate it. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Mickey Dearstone there with us on 104.5 The Zone. Lady Vols have Mississippi State tonight at Thompson Bowling Arena, as we mentioned. SEC Network Plus is where you can stream that live. When we come back, we're going to get back into the Preds conversation, and apparently me and Taylor Lewan are in a fight on social media. I'll tell you what's going on next.
It is 11:02. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. A report came out last night from Andy Strickland out of St. Louis stating that the Nashville Predators are actively shopping star forward Filip Forsberg, who is on track to have a career season right now with 44 points, 26 goals, and is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. That was followed up by David Pagnotta of the NHL Network saying this will probably come as quite the surprise to Forsberg as he and his reps, and the Preds have expected to get contract talks going in the near future. It's a big night for the Preds ahead of a big weekend. They're hosting the Dallas Stars in Bridgestone Arena tonight on Pekka Rinne Day as they will hang the number 35 in the rafters for the legendary goaltender who retired at the end of last season. Rinne will be the first ever player in franchise history to have his number retired. Puck drop tonight is at 7:30. Of course, the Preds will take on the Tampa Bay Lightning in Nissan Stadium for the NHL Stadium Series on Saturday night. The Titans signed an outside linebacker Wednesday in Justin Lawler with 19 games of NFL experience, all of them with the LA Rams after he was drafted in 2018 in the 7th round out of SMU. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2 on this Thursday. Welcome into the show. Happy to have you guys here on 104.5 The Zone until 1 o'clock. Lucas Panzica is making it happen behind the scenes. Mickey Dearstone was great, but we are not done with the guests for today just yet. Walker Zimmerman of Nashville SC and the U.S. men's national team are going to join us later on in the show. We got Titans, Preds, Troy Aikman to ESPN maybe. All ahead on the docket. A lot to get to, as well as your calls. 615-737-1045 is the number. 615-737-1045 is how you can jump in, if you like. Since we were talking about the Preds earlier and people seem to kind of gravitate towards that conversation, I wonder what your feeling is on the current status of the team. Kind of looking at where they are in the standings, lagging behind a little bit in the Central Division after having such a strong, basically, first half, sputtering a little bit after the All-Star break. And by the way, the Central is really, really close with where everybody is kind of stacked up right now. So it's not like they're in a perilous position a little over halfway through the season.
Currently in the first wild card spot in the Western Conference.
Sure. That would be a more effective way to summarize it than I just did. Thank you for that. Panzica Preds Minute, does that count? We've done like 25 minutes on Preds
this is the Preds Hour.
What the hell happened? But basically, the question that I want to ask you is, are you good with the idea that they're shopping Filip Forsberg while the team is still theoretically in a contender window, in a championship contender window? Do you believe the Preds are still in a championship contender window? I think those are two very different conversations. I think that when you kind of look at what they have been able to achieve thus far, and as we talked about the bulk of the core from the 2017 Cup run, still in place, few different parts, still effective, still producing at a high level in the case of several of these, and at a time when you're finally, you feel like you're on more firm ground with the Matt Duchene experience, right? That being the biggest point of contention all last winter into the spring, and as the playoffs kind of played themselves out after the Preds did so well to kind of claw and scratch their way back into the postseason after the first half of their season was a complete and utter just bleep show. Do you think they're still in a window to win a championship, and does the signal that shopping Forsberg sends make you feel differently about that idea? Devin is in Hendersonville up next on 104.5 The Zone. Hello, Devin.
Hey, Buck.
What you got for me, stud? Nope. Maybe not.
Yeah, I'm here. Hold on.
Okay. you let me know when you're ready, Devin, and we'll turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. I'm right here.
Okay.
Filip Forsberg is like insanely talented. I was in hockey skates since 4 years old. And people say in sports that the hardest thing to do is hit a 100-mile-per-hour fastball, right?
Sure.
No, I disagree. The hardest thing to do in sports is accept the pass from a defender skating up ice on razor blades, and your pass is behind you, and you have to pull it in front, and then you get your brains clocked out. But what Forsberg does, he dodges that. Like, his talent level is so high, but I don't think he wants to be here. Like, that's what my feeling is. I mean, he's such a talented player.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Devin, but I did see the report from Robbie Stanley this morning that he has not indicated to the Preds that he doesn't want to be here. What are you kind of basing that observation off of?
Maybe some of the other sportscasters on TV.
Okay.
I don't want to say any names. Who knows what people say? I mean, I'm not in the social media. I don't know. But what I heard is that he doesn't want to be here much longer. But that man is so talented, and it'd be a shame to lose him.
Thanks for the call, Devin. Look at that. He got under the gun with the music. Very efficient. 615-737-1045. You can jump in if you like. You just playing the music out for fun now? I kind of like it behind my voice. A little cheesy broadcaster vibes. Should we do like presenting award ceremony type stuff at some point? I think we'd kill it.
Year one awards.
What can we MC in the city of Nashville that we could, turn into complete and utter disaster?
Who will allow us?
No one is the appropriate answer to that question. We should actively lobby for people to have us host their events, though. I think that'd be a lot of fun. We'd make it a train wreck in short order. Now, I don't know the veracity of what he just said, right? There's been zero indication, but here's my issue with what Devin's saying. I don't know where he's getting his information or who he's saying that he heard it from. He's basically alleging that the Bally Sports television broadcast is saying
certainly not.
Chris and Willie are not.
Don't think they're getting out there and saying he doesn't want to be here.
I mean, I love Lindsay to death. She's going to be in studio with us tomorrow, but I don't think Lindsay's going to be out there ringside reporting or at the desk with Terry Crisp and saying, hey, who doesn't like it here anymore? Filip Forsberg.
I haven't seen a single person or indication that Forsberg would not want to be here, other than him expressing his displeasure at the Preds offloading Viktor Arvidsson at the end of last season.
Which is understandable because they got rid of his buddy, and that kind of stuff in sports is hard. But Robbie's report this morning indicated that there has been zero indication from Filip Forsberg or his representatives that he is displeased with his current situation in Nashville. Now, how the report changes that? Because again, whether it's got legs or not, whether it happens or not, you're getting this news at a time. It's going to be emotions are involved in this, right? And then we'll move on largely from the Preds. We'll talk more about it tomorrow after we see how tonight's game plays out with Pekka Rinne being honored. But from my standpoint, I think it's totally human, Filip Forsberg's displeasure with the way that they traded away Viktor Arvidsson, his buddy, at the end of last season. I think it would also be fair to assume that on an emotional night, honoring one of his teammates and somebody who he looks up to a great deal in Pekka Rinne, that the news would come out the day before, basically less than 24 hours before this game is supposed to be played tonight at Bridgestone, that he's on the trading block. I think that completely has the potential to nuke something. If Forsberg is that kind of an emotional being. Now, admittedly, I don't know him. I've not interacted with him. Like I said, I used to cut up highlights for the Preds radio network a million years ago. That's about the extent of my hockey coverage is concerned, other than we've had Ryan Johansson on the show. That's the only Preds entity that we've had as a part of our show before.
Well, hopefully we'll have David Poyle next week.
Oh, look at you with a tease. Okay. And we can ask him whether he's shopping Filip Forsberg. That's timely. Love to see it. But from my standpoint, I'm fascinated to see, dynamics and the fragile ecosystem of team sports how does this is he so much of a professional? Is he able to actually compartmentalize and just continue this level of play that Filip Forsberg is currently producing in this season, despite this being a part of the conversation, not just around him, but now around his team? Because now we're having larger conversations about, all right, what does this mean for the future sustainability of the franchise? And not just that, what is the immediate impact of a move of this consequence? Because Lucas and Austin Stanley, who texted me this comparison, I just now saw it, basically, Filip Forsberg right now is akin to putting Derrick Henry on the trade block. That's a move of massive consequence.
But it would be because Henry, Forsberg was hurt for a lot of last season, right?
Right.
Henry was hurt for a lot of last season.
Basically, to play the analogy out, if Henry, after missing half of a season here, goes out and produces at a high level, maybe not 2,000 yards rushing, but still the NFL's leading rusher or the AFC's leading rusher.
1,600 yards.
And then you say, okay, he's got a year left on his deal. It's never getting any better. Let's go get, a fifth-round pick for him? And people would poop themselves.
That would be the equivalent.
People would lose their damn minds. Why is, I come back to, why the hell isn't there more reporting around Filip Forsberg? I want to know what's happening, and nobody locally seems to know a damn thing.
I'm telling you, I think it's an NHL thing.
What does that mean?
These conversations are so much more tight-knit in that league than they are in the NFL. I truly believe that.
Well, and there's also the idea that access is so much more restrictive. I mean, even in the NFL, I think we were the only team or the only media core for a team that didn't go virtual at the end of the season. Or at least I don't know that offhand that we were the only ones, but we were one of the few, because I know as early as Pittsburgh, people were already being put back onto Zoom calls with players and coaches. And hockey, as a concept, hockey, they have a dressing room and then they have a locker room attached to the dressing room, right? There's a place where they come to meet with the media, but they also have their own space.
We're talking about a sport where injury designations are upper or lower body.
It's infuriating to me.
Not hamstring, right? Not forearm, upper or lower body.
I'd almost rather have, this constant fight to the death with Mike Vrabel at a press conference every day over injury designations than have it just be left out there. Upper or lower body, kids? Ugh, that would drive me nuts. When we come back, we're going to discuss basically the idea, can the Preds ever be the best ticket in town? Again, this was something that Steve Lehman gave voice to. We've got the Stadium Series coming up this weekend. Lucas is going to be our correspondent on the ground. We'll see, I don't know how much reporting is going to be done because he's going to be in the stands amongst Preds fans celebrating, I'm quite certain.
Section 343.
Well, what if people don't like you?
You think I'll see the puck? I think there's no chance I'm going to be able to see the puck from 343.
You're going to be watching the whole game on a Jumbotron.
Yeah, there's no chance
343?
Yep.
I don't know. I've never been. I don't know what the view. Again, this is going to be
Those are called nosebleeds.
I know, jerk. I'm trying to find ways to talk about this without being a D-bag. Okay? I admittedly have never been in the 300 section at Nissan Stadium. I'm not saying it's just because my job is different. I sit in the press box because that's my job. All right? No snobbery about it, even though I couldn't think of the word nosebleeds last week. So I don't know what the view is like from up there. All I know is that my parents came to a game one time with my grandmother. And my grandma is prone to vertigo, and she had a vertigo bit in the 300 level because they didn't know, they'd never been to Nissan Stadium. This is the first game that they attended. I think this was the Jets game in 2019, which was just a wretched watch. They didn't convert a single third down until I think it was Tajay Sharp or Corey Davis caught a touchdown on third down. It's the only third down conversion of the game, and I would just, oh God, I hated that my family was in attendance for that performance.
Do not take her to Neyland Stadium then. She had vertigo in Nissan Stadium. You get her high up there in Neyland Stadium.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like this is borderline a health hazard for you up there at 343, because that's not just 300. That's the back of the back in 300.
Yeah.
All right,
just wanted to get in the building.
Take a picture, tweet it, tag me and tag the zone, and we'll retweet it for people. Well, most people I imagine have experienced the 300 level before. Anyway, we'll talk about that next. Welcome back. Buck Reising here with you till 1 o'clock. Don't forget, Walker Zimmerman of Nashville SC going to join us at 12:20 today. I don't think that's going to be our only guest. There is a conflict brewing on social media right now between me and the starting left tackle of the Titans. We'll see what we can orchestrate and if we can bring this conflict on air. But Walker Zimmerman, in the meantime, I'm sure that's going to be a more peaceful conversation, given that Nashville SC's season kicking back up on Sunday. So I guess all of the complaining, how do you think that got back to Nashville SC? Because in their defense, they got in touch with us and said, "Hey, do you want to have somebody on the show to talk about Nashville SC?" Which kind of misses the point of the larger conversation that we had. Because I'm very excited to talk to Walker. His whole situation is fascinating. With basically, what did he take, a week and a half off before he went to play for the national team?
This man gets like 2 weeks off the entire calendar year.
It seems exhausting, and he does it at a high level, and they keep bringing him back, which is fantastic for him. But I wonder how that conversation got back to the soccer people. Like, hey, there's some idiot with a microphone railing against the fact that nobody is telling him that your season starts on Sunday, and so the solution is, hey, let's give him one of our great players. Which, love that. Thank you very much, Nashville SC. 615-737-1045. You can jump in if you like on the conversation. And the one that we've been having around the Preds and where we kind of are with the hockey team right now, Steve Lehman, who maybe look at Steve throwing some hot takes out there. Last time we had him in, maybe we should have Lehman back in studio every once in a while. But Lehman, we were talking about the Preds. He had texted me saying when he came in last week that he was fairly passionate about the lack of energy in Bridgestone Arena when Peter Laviolette came back as the coach of the Washington Capitals. Now, of course, Peter Laviolette, who is responsible for the most successful stretch of Preds hockey in their history. I don't know that anybody would dispute that, right? The Stanley Cup appearance, taking the Pittsburgh Penguins to 6 games, ultimately losing on the road, but still consistent playoff team, consistent contender. They won the President's Trophy the year after they went to the Cup, even if the playoff run was disappointing. And so Lehman thought there should be more energy given how much excitement Preds fans bring to that arena about that team and largely the gratitude that's there. The point that Lehman made was this. I'm just going to shut up and let Steve do the talking.
But it was just a dull atmosphere. And it was interesting to me because I think if you want to take it out to a larger picture, the Lavi years, especially the early years, weren't just the best years on the ice, but they were the best years in the stands because those were the people who really loved Nashville hockey. And they loved Predators hockey before Predators hockey became cool. And those successful seasons made that building the toughest place in the NHL to play.
Sure.
They made it the loudest. They made it the most fun. And those people aren't there all the time anymore. And there's a lot of reasons that you can guess on that. I'm sure other people have. But it's not the same. And I guess it can get back there, but it's not the same right now. They are, for 3 years ago, the Preds were the number 1 game in town. Until the Titans made the run to the AFC Championship game.
Indisputably.
The Preds were the thing to do. It would be way cooler with your friends to go to a Thursday night Predators game than to go to a Sunday noon kickoff with the Titans. That is absolutely the case. It's not anymore. It is absolutely not. People want to go to Nissan Stadium with the Titans, and maybe that's the correct order in this town. This is a football city. But it has changed from the Predators' perspective, and I think they have to figure out how to get it back.
That's Steve Lehman talking about the environment at Bridgestone Arena. We have tweets regarding this from Vincent Love, V-Love, who says, "I'll keep saying it till I'm blue in the face. Preds killed Smashville as we knew and loved it, and then they got rid of the draft beers in the standing room. So when you took away the beers for people in standing room only, that's when things started to sour." Now, things are currently souring on the internet. I'm in a fight, apparently, on social media, and the opposing side is now on the line. Taylor Lewan of the Tennessee Titans joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. Good morning.
Buck, I've heard your plea for help over text messages, and I know you want your ratings boosted. I'm not a miracle worker. I'm just a man, but I will do my best to help you out in this time of need, my friend.
Are you still a man at this point after I've completely emasculated you on the internet today? Are you still a man, in fact?
Yep. I look down below, and it's not much, but it's mine. So in fact, I am a man.
So do you want to explain to people what's happening on the internet, and so we can sell out these these sellout Willie T-shirts that are currently available at barstoolsports.com?
Yeah. So here's the deal. I know a lot of people listening now, fans of Bustin' with the Boys, and I just want to say to all those tier 1s, tier 2s, and tier 3s out there that I really appreciate you. You're making my life a whole bunch better, and I really enjoy it. But we had a bit of a situation, and it was after my beloved Tennessee Titans, unfortunately, my beloved, as if I wasn't a part of it, we lost to the Bengals.
You were kind of there for that. I was there as well.
I was there for that. And listen, your boy is still heartbroken about it. The gloomy day outside of Nashville is really it's a symbol of how I really feel.
Yes.
And Will Compton, being the capitalist pig he is, decided that he wants to capitalize on this thing and do For the Boys T-shirts. Now, I'm not against doing For the Boys T-shirts for the Bengals because we're all for the boys. If you're not for them, you're against them. In the whole NFL world, everyone's a fan of their own team, and everyone deserves to have their For the Boys T-shirts.
Yes.
But the timing, my friend, was the issue. So Will, under my nose, goes and puts these For the Boys Bengals shirts out, which I'm pretty sure didn't even sell very well. And so me, Jack, and Garrett, those are two guys that work with us at Bustin' with the Boys who are huge Titan fans, were upset. And there was only one thing we can do to bring this tyrant to justice, and that was to make Sellout Willie T-shirts. And Will, you know how he is. He probably loves the fact that his name's just on a T-shirt anyway. But I think it's only fair that we show him what's what and sell at least 500 of these things in the end of the week. And it's Thursday, so we better get on it, folks.
No, I think you can do that at store.barstoolsports.com. Sellout Willie, #for-himself T-shirts available now. So I purchased one of these today because I'm all for dragging Will across the surface of the sun for the stupid things that he does. And
I love that.
You came at my throat for it, though.
Well, Buck, it's not necessarily me coming at you for it. I just know how big of a fan you are of not only the podcast, but me and Will. And how you're drastically wanting to be a part of it so bad. And you know what?
Somewhat.
I can call you my employee. But
if you think you can afford me, you are out of your damn mind.
It's not fair to your radio station. It's not fair to the people that are paying you right now for you to be this outward towards wanting to be a part of Bustin' with the Boys. And I just think everybody needs a fair shot. And so you're contractually obligated. When you're done, we can talk. But for now, I think that's the important thing.
Well, you better start saving money now. He tweeted me, Lawan did. Buck wants to be a part of Bustin' with the Boys so bad it's sad to watch. And so I've since responded. I hope you'll keep up these chirps from Detroit next year. Did that one hurt? Did that hit a little too close to the bone?
From Detroit?
Yeah, from Detroit. I hope you keep it up.
Hey, you know what? That is a solid chirp. And I'll tell you a little thing about nothing against Detroit, but here's a fun little story.
I don't mean to drag the Lions at all. It's just the first one that popped into my head.
No, that's funny. You know what? And it would be even funnier if it happened. It would hurt me more than anything. But at least your joke would come full circle and really be a nice dagger in the heart.
Yeah.
So fun little story. In 2014, obviously, your boy was sitting in the green room waiting to get drafted by the team that wanted him most. And I was fortunately picked by the Tennessee Titans at 11. But there was a moment there when the Detroit Lions picked at 10. And I, going to be honest, was real nervous. I did not want to go to Detroit. Did not want to. I love the franchise. I love the people in Detroit. I love the people in Michigan, obviously, playing at the University of Michigan for 4 years. But at that point, I was ready to see a different part of the country and was very fortunate to come to this great state of Tennessee and play in Nashville, which is probably the best franchise city there can possibly be. I've been to all of them now, and I don't think one touches it. So everyone who lives in Nashville, you're lucky.
Titans left tackle Taylor Lewan there with us on 104.5 The Zone. Again, the Sellout Willie T-shirts for sale, store.barstoolsports.com. The goal is 500 by the end of the week. It's Thursday. Get on it. I have contributed to the cause because I'm all in for a good joke. Taylor, thank you for stopping by.
Thank you for having me, Buck, and we'll talk in the future about your contract.
Again, you can't afford me. See you, bud. Taylor Lewan, there with us on 104.5 The Zone. I knew about the Detroit thing. That's why I said it. I didn't want to tell him that on air. I do listen to the podcast. I've heard the story about the Detroit Lions and the fact that he didn't want to go there. So maybe I struck a nerve a little bit. 615-737-1045. The T-shirts are funny. Normally, because you know how Barstool works. Am I being too inside internet if I talk about the Barstool T-shirt phenomenon? Lucas tries to protect against me being too internet driven when I know this is a terrestrial radio show. What?
No, go finish your thought.
Okay,
I'm curious.
Wait, Barstool, they make T-shirts for everything, right? The Barstool will sell literally anything, put it on a T-shirt, and completely fund the empire at this point. The T-shirt phenomenon for Barstool continues. So it's very rare that I get the opportunity to buy any of this stuff because one, I don't wear team gear as a reporter. I wouldn't do that. And two, everything else has Compton or Taylor's face on that, and I don't want that in my life. I don't need that, except for this, the Sellout Willie T-shirt, because I do believe him to be a corporate sellout. What did Taylor call him? A capitalist pig. So yeah, store.barstoolsports.com. Go get you a Sellout Willie T-shirt. My objective was to wear this on air, and then to start the fight to we haven't had Will on the show since he became a Raider. I felt betrayed when he left us for Vegas. So we've since it's been an unspoken ban on Will Compton on the radio show. So I was wanted to wait till things got a little drier in sports to rekindle our feud with the bus. But I think this presents a great opportunity to do that. So.
Are you on speaking terms with Will?
I am on speaking terms with Will. In fact, Will has just texted me because while roasting him, all he's seen me do is roast his colleague, his comrade, his co-host on the internet. Little does he know that I'm a multitasker and I can burn you both on multiple platforms. 615-737-1045. You can jump in on the conversation if you like. Taylor, I think, is going to be a big part of the stadium series for the Preds, by the way, not to kind of try and bring this thing back full circle from Layman's comments. But, I mean, I've been to Preds games since, the whole Smashville phenomenon really became a thing. I was at playoff games during the Cup run, and I've seen Bridgestone Arena kind of reach those heights, right, where everybody's downloaded the Decibel app on their phones and they're trying to figure out, okay, did we really make the same amount of noise as a fighter jet or something like that, where whatever the, what I'm talking about, whatever the gauge says the sound level is akin to. But since then I haven't felt that environment in a long time. And again, admittedly, I don't go to nearly as many Preds games as most people listening to this show. So maybe it's just I've missed that experience on the nights that I'm able to go. Because if I'm not doing the primetime show during the weekends, I'm usually traveling during football season. I've had the opportunity to go a couple Preds games since football season ended, but still I haven't felt I've not felt that same juice. And I remember Vingan, who writes for The Athletic, who covers the Predators for The Athletic, Adam Vingan, remember talking to him about this on a podcast a couple of years ago about how much of the Smashville thing is a fad. How many of these people are going to stick around as true blue Preds fans, or is it easier to gravitate towards something that's at the top of Lower Broadway, where everybody is going to be partying anyway, so now you just throw some yellow on them and it looks like something you've never seen. A 20,000 plus seat arena that you're able to pack out. You got Carrie Underwood singing the anthem. You got all these different bright and shiny things, and you're winning. You're in the last series. You're one of the last two teams playing. Beyond that, how much of this carries over? How many people are going to continue to stay with this as night in, night out attendees, or if you got a Thursday night open with your buddies or your girlfriends, you want to go get, have a couple of cocktails, go hang out at a Preds game. Are people still doing that as a weekday activity? I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't know why I said answer like that. Answer to that is I don't have any kind of numbers in terms of what they're what their season ticket situation is looking like since the 2017. So, to kind of cover our bases here, it's a bit of speculation on my part. But it does feel like that experience is less than. Now, tonight is going to be the exception with Pekka Rinne, right? Every once in a while, you can still get back up to that level. I'm honestly, I haven't looked at tickets. I haven't thought about going until just now because I've got the primetime show at 8, but I'm wondering if I shouldn't get a ticket and go late to this because I do think this is going to be a pretty unique experience for Nashville sports fans and Preds fans, wherever you may hail from. I mean, for Finnish Preds fans who are just wanting to have one of their countrymen honored in that way. 615-737-1045 is the number. When we come back, I want to talk about Troy Aikman and the idea that he may end up on ESPN in the Monday Night Football booth next season based on the reporting around that so far. We'll talk about that coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Money trees. That's what Filip Forsberg's looking for. I don't know if that's something that the Preds are going to be willing to reward him with, but we can talk about it. 615-737-1045. It's a discussion that's currently being had. Lucas said he has been working on getting David Poile for us for next week, which is going to be, we're going to be jam-packed and loaded next week. Not only are we expected to have David Poile, I think Tony Vitello is going to be on the show at some point next week. We're going to be up at the Combine. So, Cosell is going to do the radio show live with me in place of the podcast next week. It's going to be a bit of a cluster, but it'll be a lot of fun to work through. In the meantime, this news from the New York Post on Troy Aikman. Now, I don't know how much people care about inside baseball when it comes to the broadcasting element of things, like how much people care about sports media outside of media. But I think when you go as large scale as, the big broadcast on Fox, the number one team on Fox on Sundays, to ESPN's, probably biggest property, is there anything on ESPN bigger than Monday Night Football? Because ABC gets the biggest college football games. You have the college football playoff, but that doesn't rate like NFL does. Is there a bigger property than Monday Night Football?
It's the NFL's biggest sport in America, and that's their only NFL programming.
So the New York Post reported about 16 hours ago, according to Google, that Troy Aikman is on the verge of bolting Fox for ESPN's Monday Night Football. He's expected to leave Fox Sports and join as their main analyst. So that would push what? Riddick and Greasy just out? You're just saying, all right, kick rocks, Lou. I hate that for Louis Riddick. I know people don't like that booth. They just kind of find it generally uninteresting. But I think Louis is so damn good at his job. I don't know enough about Brian. I don't follow Brian's work as closely. I think there's just less exposure to him because Riddick is on every one of these ESPN shows. But I hate the idea of that. Anyway, ESPN, the deal will be 5 years and in the neighborhood of Tony Romo's $17.5 million per year. I forgot that Romo was making $17.5. Man. Deal not yet signed, but it is near completion. ESPN declined to comment. This is a pretty massive move as far as the television broadcasters are concerned, because Aikman is held in a certain regard. I don't know who among the three main network analysts, because if we can't count the Manning cast as a part of this, right? So let's just talk about the three main networks outside of ESPN. You've got NBC with Collinsworth and Michaels. How long that, by the way, stays together is a matter unto itself, because Amazon is apparently making a significant push for Al Michaels. And
Al Michaels said before the Super Bowl for the final time. Here's Chris Collinsworth.
That's going to be such a weird thing if they completely shake up all the booths outside of Nance and Romo. And Romo was getting this weird kind of blowback this year because he's been still predicting plays, but he's gotten further away from the game, so he's worse at it. The Romo experience seems to be wearing on people in ways that I did not expect. I don't know if there's a consensus favorite among those three, Aikman, Collinsworth, and Romo, because I know you got to kind of put the ESPN Monday night booth. When's the last time? Is it been since Gruden, before we found out all the problematic things with John Gruden? Gruden and Tirico? Was that the last time the Monday night football booth was at its height?
I think so, because it was Gruden, Tirico, and then Sean McDonough and Gruden. And Sean McDonough is a phenomenal broadcaster, but he has come out and said that wasn't really a great chemistry because I'm a storyteller. Gruden doesn't care about the stories. He's X's and O's. So, yeah, I think Gruden, Tirico, for me, is the peak of Monday Night Football in my 26-year-old life.
615-737-1045. Well, does it change? People aren't going to change how they consume football just because the commentators are different, right? If we kind of have this shuffling deck of, Al Michaels goes to Amazon and Troy Aikman's on ESPN and whoever they put as the number one with Joe Buck on Fox, what does that do for Joe Buck? Is Joe Buck now going to reconsider because he likes working with Troy Aikman? I have no idea. All I know is that largely people are going to change their football habits. I wish they would do more creative things like the Manning cast. I hate that and I'm biased, but I love Tony Kornheiser. One of the few things that I listen to on a daily basis is Tony Kornheiser's podcast. And I love when they tried to put Tony in the booth on Monday Night Football, but it's a disaster, right? It wasn't the proper setting. The Manning cast format was not in existence yet, where you couldn't have more fun, or like Dennis Miller when they tried to put a comedian in there among the super serious, it's 1st and 10 from the 35, Manning behind center and whomever in the back, Joseph Adai in the backfield or something. I don't know. I can't do play-by-play. But what are you laughing about?
I'm just thinking about a Buck Aikman breakup and how much of a foreign concept that seems to me. Like, I've been in the booth with those guys. I was a runner for Fox when Thursday Night Football came to Nashville for the Colts game.
Look at you, claim to fame.
In 2020. Yeah, claim to fame, running up and down, doing whatever they needed me to do. But I was in the booth just kind of sitting in the corner observing. Those guys are just as close off the air as they are on the air.
No, you have to be. Like, each one has a different dynamic, right? With Collinsworth and Michaels, you feel like you're hanging out with your dad's buddies and you're having a glass of scotch,
well,
right?
Like, I don't know if Steve Levy hangs out with Brian Greasy, right?
Everything I don't know Steve Levy. Everything I hear about Steve Levy is that he is one of the most wonderful people in our industry. And good people in our industry are terribly difficult to come by because all of us have just horrendous egos. I'm not, I don't even work at a network. I've got a horrendous, well, I guess Cumulus is technically a network, but like I don't work at a major television broadcast entity, and I've got an ungodly ego. I can't imagine what people in those spots are like. Buffalo is in Rivergate. Buffalo, you've called us 3 times this week, I think, from 3 different locations. What's happening?
Yeah.
I keep on the road.
That's smart.
You have no idea how much 50% of the NFL hates Troy Aikman and his bias. I mean, whenever the Green Bay Packers or whoever, whenever he starts, the team will eventually get to a point where they're going to lose, and he just gets in a giddy. He gets so happy when the team's and then if they stick him on Monday night, I'm all good with all that because Buck is okay, but so many people hate Troy that it's unbelievable. And we can talk about Romo. All of us hated Romo when he was the quarterback for Dallas because they were pretty good. I mean, I know he was the greatest, but he gave you a lot to hate because he was so good and he was beating your team down. And then he became a broadcaster. And now we all like him. He's from Wisconsin, so that kind of got his foot in the door for us Packer fans. But a lot of people like him and like his style. And I really like him. And it's nobody liked Brady. And then all of a sudden he gets drunk on a boat. Everybody loves him.
Hey, Buffalo, that did it for me. Stay on the move, my friend. Just under the gun.
Well, we'll talk to you from San Francisco.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
he has legitimately called us from 3 different locations in Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, like Westmoreland, Rivergate. I don't know where the other time was.
I'm fascinated by this man, the Buffalo.
So what he's saying is all Troy Aikman has to do is get drunk on a boat, and we'll all love him.
But that's a Packers thing, right? Because he played for the Cowboys. Like, Packers fans consistently have that complaint about Troy Aikman. Consistently. And the idea that he would say Joe Buck is okay, but Aikman is just so hateable. Nobody feels that way outside of Packers fans. People despise Joe Buck.
Yeah, there's a lot of vitriol towards Joe Buck, which
Absolutely.
I've never understood. Never understood it.
He's kind of, I'm trying to think of the best way to summarize this. Like, there are people who just have likability issues, who may be generally good people, but come off as smug or better than you, or, you just don't like the way they look and maybe their tone is bad. I have tone problems, right? We have tried actively as a show to combat my tone problem.
We have meetings about this.
We literally have meetings. Hey, you kind of sounded like a jerk today. Back it off a little bit. And I don't know that I'm doing it because I'm just kind of perpetually, like, I'm just naturally a jerk. I don't know that I'm doing it. So maybe that's Joe Buck's problem too. Maybe it's all in the name. Also, Joe Buck, Indiana Hoosier, but did not graduate from IU. So maybe there's that common thread as far as our likability factor is concerned as well. 6 degrees of separation, except instead of Kevin Bacon, make it Joe Buck. When we come back, we are going to discuss expectations for Nashville Soccer Club. Walker Zimmerman is going to join us at 12:20. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. Nashville SC's season begins on Sunday in Seattle. They have a ridiculous 8 straight road games to start their season. And I want to know, are people interested in this team that has made it to the postseason in their first 2 seasons? Do you have any expectations whatsoever? Are you in a place where you are going to start paying attention to the soccer club and its season along with all the other local sports and sports that are going on in this current environment right now? Expectations for Nashville SC coming up next.
It is 12:02. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica, and it is Pekka Rinne Day at Bridgestone Arena tonight as the Preds host the Dallas Stars, and they will hang the number 35 in the rafters for the legendary goaltender who retired at the end of last season. Rinne will be the first player to have his number retired in franchise history. Puck drop tonight is at 7:30. Report last night came down from Andy Strickland out of St. Louis stating that the Predators are actively shopping star forward Filip Forsberg, who is on track for a career year, 26 goals, 18 assists, and is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. And that was followed up by a report from David Pagnotta of the NHL Network saying that Forsberg and his reps with the Preds have been expecting to get contract talks going in the near future. Titans signed an outside linebacker on Wednesday, Justin Lawler, with 19 games of NFL experience, all with the LA Rams. He was drafted in 2018 in the 7th round out of SMU. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 3 here on 104.5 The Zone. Welcome in, or welcome back if you've been hanging with us so far. Been a fun show, been super random. We've been all over the place. We're not quite done yet. Happy to have you guys involved with the proceedings. 615-737-1045. You can jump in if you like. 615-737-1045 is the number. Lucas Panzica is behind the scenes, but I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to keep him there. Because, I mean, he's glowing. He looks like he needs a cigarette. He's damn near post-coital at this point because we are getting ready to, I think, talk about 20 minutes of Nashville SC. And I don't know what that's going to do to you. I don't know if I can keep you down for much longer, especially when Walker Zimmerman joins us in about, 16 minutes from now?
12:20 coming off the training field, and I imagine it's been a sloshy one today.
All right, who's taking the bigger victory lap, you or Charlie and Franklin? Because since Charlie and Franklin has called us, I don't think I've talked about the NFL for a segment other than to, lash out at Taylor Lewan.
Charlie and Franklin is glowing this week.
He should be.
Yesterday we did golf. Today we've done hockey, soccer.
I even worked in a Freddie Freeman reference. Like, what more do you want from me? Versatility, baby. So, yeah, we'll get to Walker Zimmerman here in about 15 minutes. Expectations for Nashville SC are a pretty interesting conversation to have around this city because, my contention was the whole reason that we're having Walker Zimmerman on is because I had been railing about the idea that I had no earthly idea until I saw an MLS commercial running on ESPN this past weekend that Nashville SC season was about to start. Now, I understand that there are a million different things that I don't know about what it takes to market Major League Soccer in the Southeast. I am sure there are some uphill battles. I am sure there are some different issues with why it is that I didn't know, as somebody who works in local sports, was not aware that Nashville SC was getting ready to start their season up until recently. Like my contention was I just don't think there's been a good enough job hyping up the actual soccer team as opposed to, hey, we've got this brand new, shiny stadium that you can come hang out in Berry Hill whenever you want, except not until May because that's when the first home game is going to be played, weirdly enough, given the idea that the season starts on, basically February, I think it's the 27th?
This Sunday.
So expectations is the question. This is a team that has made the postseason in each of their initial first 2 years. They have been very successful. Is it fair to say that the loss to the Philadelphia Union in the playoffs was a disappointment? Did you expect them to go further than that?
Yes, it did come down to a penalty shootout, and it was actually the first penalty shootout this club has experienced at the MLS level. Always going to be a crapshoot. You're also going up one of the best goalkeepers in the league in Andre Blake of Philadelphia. But, yes, I think so. The expectation in that locker room last season was MLS Cup. For me, it's fair when the expectation is that in the locker room for that to be the expectation surrounding it, media, fans, and whatever else.
So for the general Nashville sports fan, are you interested? Are you invested? And I hate to kind of do that kind of radio because something about it feels a bit lazy, just to kind of generally ask people, how much do you care about the soccer team getting ready to start play? But I do think it's kind of, I think it's the most appropriate way to talk about this, just to kind of gauge the temperature of where things are with sports fans right now, because, unless you want to talk about the Titans' free agent priority being Ben Jones at center, I don't know how much more we can offer you outside of the fact that, hey, the pro soccer team in town is getting ready to start play. They've got some great players on it. In fact, one that the national team can't keep their hands off of. In fact, he's going to join us coming up next. I don't hear, and again, when does the Nashville Soccer Show start back up, Lucas?
We're all digital right now. Hopefully we'll be back on the air shortly. But Speedway Soccer is going live at 8:30 tonight with a season preview podcast. But hopefully Davey and Will and I will be able to get back on the air shortly.
Okay. So outside of that, they don't make players, like their coach is not made available for settings like this terribly often. I haven't worked with their PR. You would speak to this better than I would. But they don't make guys like Walker Zimmerman available that often. And I don't understand why. Now, I get you don't want to overexpose him. And this is a guy who has a multitude of different entities kind of grabbing at him right now. But I don't necessarily know. I feel like sports fans in this city are trying to create connections with people like Hani Mukhtar and Walker Zimmerman and all of the different players on Nashville SC because they're starting to become more familiar faces. But there is this kind of Is it unfair to say that there's a kind of distance between what people want from the club and what the club is providing them right now? Or is that an unfair characterization? Because that's kind of the way that I'm experiencing it.
Not necessarily. The club, Hani Mukhtar is set to speak to the media right now. Gary Smith meets with the media routinely week in and week out.
But I'm talking about, like, people aren't going, and respectfully, people aren't seeking out press conferences, right?
Right.
I'm talking about in settings where you get to hear a conversation with your favorite player. For your favorite player for Nashville SC. Taylor Lewan, we just, impromptu got him on the radio show. Like, Lewan engenders himself to people when he does stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying that Walker Zimmerman has to call us on a Wednesday just to chat. I'm not saying that at all. I'm kind of curious with the way that the soccer team is approaching it and how much that has to do with people's level of interest. Or once it starts, are people just going to start gravitating towards it again? Because that stadium looks like a place you want to be.
It has felt like if you build it, they will come kind of mentality with this club and with the new stadium. And ticket sales have gone very, very well for Nashville SC. May 1st is the date for the opening stadium over in the Wedgwood area. And it looks phenomenal. We got to tour the construction site last summer, and it really does look good. But it's going to be a grueling road to get there to start the season.
615-737-1045. You can jump in on this conversation before we catch up with Walker Zimmerman here in just a second. 615-737-1045 is the number. There's going to be a lot of enjoyable sports in Nashville this weekend. We'll spend more time on it later, given that the Vols are going to host the number 2 team in the country in college basketball, Auburn. You got Nashville SC opening up on the road at Seattle, one of the better teams in MLS. So it's going to be an enjoyable experience. I'm just kind of curious to where people are at with it right now. Jonathan is in Brentwood, wants to chime in on NSC. Hello, Jonathan.
Hello, thanks for taking my call, and thank you for having Walker Zimmerman on. I'm looking forward to that.
That's entirely thank the soccer team. We're grateful that they offered him to us.
My point is, I think that NSC has been not the best at communicating, but I also feel like local sports media hasn't done their work on this. I feel like you guys should be digging into this like you are now, prior to this week, to talk about it, because Nashville has one of the best soccer teams in the MLS right now. I think they're ranked 4th or 5th overall, and I'm pretty pumped about it.
I don't disagree, Jonathan. I think there can be more legwork done by us. Again, I'm not absolving us of fault. I think, it sounds kind of self-important and self-involved, but the conversation locally kind of goes as the people with the platforms go. And so, when I'm talking a lot about the NFL offseason, I do think there's a greater interest in the NFL offseason than there is with the start of the MLS season, but I don't think those two things are fair to compare. We've done things, we cover it, we talk about it far more than anybody else, don't we? Right?
Yeah, I think so.
Just because of your connection to it.
Yeah.
And that's not to say, at least we're doing it. I'm not saying that. But I also think that there has to be a greater interest, and maybe it's, the chicken and egg conversation. Which comes first? People talking about it more and then generating interest, or people caring about it and then you talking about it after the fact because there's interest?
This season is going to be interesting in that, because with the new stadium, now they kind of embark on another level of this new era of Nashville sports. Because before sharing Nissan Stadium with the Titans, they did a good job of making it a good environment, but at the same time, that's an almost 70,000 person stadium.
I've gotten a lot of questions about where would the Titans play if Nissan Stadium gets demoed and they can't play they can't play in Nissan Stadium while they build a new stadium next to Nissan, if that's the path that they're going to choose. Just the idea of some Titans executive knocking on Nashville SC's door at the new stadium and be like, "Hey guys, time to return the favor." It's like Don Corleone. When I call you, you better pick up.
That'd be tough. I don't know if that would work with the way the sidelines are engineered at the new soccer stadium. It's a very intimate atmosphere. That's what you're going to get in the new building in May. I mean, you are right on top of the field. You don't need nearly as much space on the sidelines on a soccer field as you do for a football field.
Yeah, the Chargers did it. It was a
They did. That's true.
Very unpleasant experience for them. Eric is in Nashville, wants to chime in. Hello, Eric.
Hey, I just wanted to call in and say that, I'm super excited about the new stadium and the season. Nashville SC has picked up some really great roster additions, and I think that if the city fully embraces the success of our team, everyone will benefit. If you can go to a game and you never have been, I highly recommend it. It's just an electric atmosphere, and I can't imagine how much better it will be since we're not in that giant open air cavern of Nissan Stadium.
Thanks for the call. I mean, listen, at least you had somewhere to play, right? I understand though what he's saying, because I've had a great time. I've been to two. I went to their season opener last year with you, right?
Yeah, we went. Yep. We both games you went were with me.
Well, yeah, because you're basically having to hold my hand through what is the soccer? Educate me.
Well, we
man.
took some listeners to that Chicago Fire game where Hani Mukhtar scored a hat trick in 16 minutes, which does not happen in the game of soccer.
He went crazy.
That is not a thing that occurs.
No, they were both
in this game.
They were both very exciting. See, here's my problem. I got spoiled because I think the season opener ended in a draw, but it was like I've never been excited by a draw in soccer before. And then the Hani Mukhtar game where, he ended up with, did he end up with 4?
I think he ended up with 4. He had a hat trick in the first 16 and they won 5-1.
Unbelievable. Checkered Sawdust says, wait, Buck and Lucas are actual friends?
Shocker.
I think so. You may get a different answer from Lucas in an honest moment. We'll see. We'll see if Walker Zimmerman can't further educate us. More of your phone calls coming up next as well. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Let's not waste any time because our next guest has just come out of training in the rain and the elements here in Nashville. It's Walker Zimmerman, center back for Nashville SC and the U.S. men's national team. Walker, what's going on, stud?
Not too much, man. Like you said, just warming up after that cold session outside.
I was cracking up during the commercial break. I saw your coach, Gary Smith, was meeting with the media. He said that training in this was a bit of a disaster today, it sounds like.
Yeah, thankfully we have a turf field to go manage days like this. But, yeah, it's pretty interesting when guys are out there bundled up and rain's just kind of flying sideways in your face. It's tough, but we got to get some work done on the field and had a good session, so it was good.
I know the city is excited to see you guys back in action this Sunday at Seattle. The expectations for this team, Walker, after having so much success in your first two seasons at the MLS level, what is the expectation for this team heading into this third season?
I think it's certainly to be very competitive, as competitive as we've been in the past. But now we're chasing silverware, chasing trophies, and that's kind of the next step for us. We've gotten two deep playoff runs, lost an extra time in PKs, and so we're getting close. But the next step is finally taking home some silverware. So that's what we're focused on this year.
Walker Zimmerman is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. We're talking Nashville SC. It's crazy to me. You guys open with 8 straight road games. I know in sports the whole idea is not to ever look ahead and you take it game by game, but that seemed to me to be a bit unprecedented. How do you kind of manage a situation like that as you get ready to head into another season?
Well, there's no question it's difficult. Teams have had to do this in the past, whether it's stadium renovations or open up a new stadium like we are. I know from personal experience, we did it at LAFC. We had 6 games on the road, so this is 8 games. But the only way to really approach it is game by game. You can't try and get too ahead of yourself. Obviously, we'll set a goal of points that we want to achieve by the end of those 8 games. But it's going out there, attacking it, not being too defensive, and just trying to get out of there with ties, but really trying to play good football, and we're having a good preseason, wrapping this up, and now we're excited to get some competitive games going. So first one, Seattle, that's going to be a good test for us, and all the travel, moving to the Western Conference. These are just little difficulties that we'll just have to continue to overcome.
Yeah, that's and I know that COVID has wreaked havoc on a variety of different things, not just things like a sports season, but with you guys in the way that you've basically had to switch conferences the last couple of seasons, now heading back into the Western Conference, what changes about the competitiveness of the opponents that you're about to face based on how things are going to be switched up this year?
It's interesting in MLS because some years you have conferences that are better. That's just the nature of teams evolving, your signings, injuries, key players in or out. So, every year it's different. Last year, I think the consensus that the Western Conference was a little bit more difficult than the East. So we know going in, there's a lot of really good teams over there. At the same time, we haven't played many of those teams because of COVID. And so there's going to be a lot of, quick figuring out of games on the fly. You're in the game, you have to make adjustments. You haven't played that team before and need to rely on your video analysis beforehand, your preparation, making sure that you have a good understanding of what you're going to see on game day, just because you don't have prior experience against those teams. So that could be a difficulty, but at the same time, those teams haven't seen us. So it's going to be a little bit of cat and mouse, a little bit of different factors that'll come into play. But ultimately, we're excited to be able to see some new teams, play some new games, and certainly show why we should be competitive no matter what conference that we're in.
Center back for Nashville SC, Walker Zimmerman, is our guest here on 104.5 The Zone. How much time did you have off after your guys' season? Basically, I mean, that was basically December when you got done with the MLS season after the loss to the Union in the playoffs, and then you went right into national team stuff. Did you get any time away?
I didn't really get much time. We had a game on December 18th, and I was back in camp on January 6th, I think. So the time in between, I ended up getting COVID. So my days off consisted of basically my quarantine period, and then I was kind of back training and back into the next national team camp. So I think it was about 7-8 days off from training. That was kind of while I was dealing with COVID. So yeah, not much of an off season this year, but wouldn't have it any other way.
I mean, it gives the city certainly a greater rooting interest in the national team outside of, the obvious pride and love of country and love of the sport, things of that nature. I mean, to see the way that Nashville has kind of embraced you guys as a team and the way that people seem to gravitate towards you in particular, Walker, I know stuff like that can be sometimes uncomfortable to talk about, but I mean, how much does that mean to you given the way that Nashville seems to love this sport and get behind you guys when you take the pitch?
Well, I mean, it means a ton. I think I certainly feel a responsibility to represent Nashville on the national stage, on the international stage, and I hope I continue to make them proud in those games. And look, it's a young soccer city in terms of MLS and professional soccer, and so it's a chance to grow the sport here. The stadium's going to help that. Having a presence on the national team to where fans can root, for a player from their home club, but that means a lot. And so I continue to try and represent myself in the right way and represent them in the right way. And hopefully we'll just have a good window here in March, and hopefully they'll be able to see someone from their team playing in the World Cup. That's the dream of mine, and hopefully that can happen this year.
Nobody's earned it more based on how hard they've worked throughout the course of their career than Walker Zimmerman, kind enough to join us here on 104.5 The Zone. Walker, it's been a pleasure to catch up, man. Continued success and health as this season gets ready to ramp up, and trying to get back in the warm and out of the rain. I know it's particularly miserable out there today. Thanks, man.
For sure. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Walker Zimmerman of Nashville SC, there with us on 104.5 The Zone. I'm so upset with the phone line. He was good. Several times we thought about bailing out and trying to get him back on hold, but the phone line would play. Did anybody else notice that listening to that?
Yeah, I think probably something to do with the weather today.
That really irritates me. Well, you know what? That just means we'll have to talk to him again.
Yeah.
Because I really enjoyed that conversation. 615-737-1045. You can jump in on the Nashville SC talk if you like. Elijah is in Murfreesboro, wants to chime in. Hello, Elijah.
Hey, man, I'm just calling to let you know that it's honestly really glad that y'all have got my favorite Nashville SC player on there. And honestly, I love how y'all are covering the sport and the team so far. And honestly, I think this is going to be a really big step for this team finally, and I think they're going to finally go out and win this cup. And I do believe Zimmerman will get his third Defender of the Year. And I think we're going to get this dub on Sunday. Let's go, Nashville.
Okay. Thanks for the call, Elijah. Enjoy the start of the season. Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to watching. I'm looking forward. I want to get invested in soccer. Maybe we need to bring back our Nashville SC representative, Josh Black. We haven't had Josh in a while. You see what's happening with Josh, by the way? What's happening with him in the Nashville Fire Department? I don't know how I feel about that. Well, actually, I do know how I feel about that rather strongly. I don't know if we need to delve into those waters today, but I would like to get in touch with Josh and see if he would like to talk about that, because I think that would be compelling conversation. And also we can talk soccer with our comedian friend. But before I go, fire and brimstone on the decision to suspend Josh Black as a fireman for his thoughts on certain issues that are taking place in city governance, I will wait until our buddy Josh Black joins us before I espouse those beliefs.
Get some soccer takes from him, too.
Yeah, we'll get some soccer takes in there, but then I want to, then I want to talk about that.
I'm sure he'll be there loud and proud on May 1st.
Where, in Nashville SC?
Yep.
Oh yeah, he's blacked out drunk at all these. he's running through in his soccer jersey. I love seeing Josh at the soccer game.
It was fun to hang out with him at the Chicago game.
He went with us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he was part of the crew.
I'm still so mad. You guys put my face up on the Jumbotron for my birthday, and I didn't see it.
You missed it.
I didn't see it. Justice is what that's called. 615-737-1045. Jump in if you like. Speaking of irritating news that's taken place, I don't know if people are still paying attention to what's happening with Art Briles. You have not heard that name in quite some time, one would imagine. But I'm looking at this headline from a local television affiliate, Art Briles, has just been hired by an HBCU to be their head football coach at Grambling State. How are we still doing this stuff? Are you kidding me? I could not believe. I knew that he had gotten a job back in high school. He's been coaching high school for the last 2 years, apparently. Rue Taylor has tweeted us. I don't have time to look at all the legal stuff he says. Apparently, I'm not sure if he's an attorney. But says, didn't a lot of what they put on him for being fired come out as untrue? If so, not sure how he is any worse than a lot of what other coaches have been found of, Meyer, Freeze, etc. I didn't see much rebuttal from the Baylor situation. Now, I know some of that was closed to discovery, so he probably got off a little lighter than he might otherwise have because there was no legal repercussions for him, given everything that went down at Baylor. That's one of the worst sports scandals that I've seen in my lifetime. In my lifetime. Disgusting how that ended. I'm shocked. I'm shocked to see a university give him that kind of position. I don't care what level of football it is. How can you justify that even if all of the details out of the Baylor story have not been outright verified? The stuff that's true is deeply concerning because he was bounced from the NCAA. Baylor had to pay a $50,000 fine, which is a slap on the wrist. It was a probation period for about 4 years after. I mean, it's campus-wide, the sexual assault scandal. And now he's back in college coaching after 2 years. Some high school said, okay, we'll let you be in charge of more young people, more vulnerable young people. I have such a distaste for stuff like this. We were talking to Chris Childers and Josh Pate, right, about how the changes in college football have diminished their love for covering the sport of college football. Actually, Pate, I think that was a conversation we were having off air during a commercial break. So I'm not saying that Pate loves college football any less, but you know, it's something that he keeps in the back of his mind. Again, I hope I'm not betraying any confidences. But the way that college football has changed alters your love of the sport. Stuff like this with Art Briles and people in sports who are disgraced for a reason have been thrown out amid the disgrace and the scandal that they've caused and have been at the root of. The fact when they get back into sports, because it's not like Art Briles is the only one this has happened to. Been plenty of Urban Meyer, for God's sakes, at the pro level, getting a better job than the one he had. I mean, maybe the Jags job isn't a better job than the one you had at Ohio State, but still a high-level professional football job after you had to resign in disgrace there. This is the kind of stuff that makes people lose their love of sports. It really does. And maybe I'm digging too deep into it. But I mean, the thing cited in the article that I'm reading right now, KTAL News has the exclusive with Art Briles, which I'm sure is a hot commodity right now. The thing that's cited in the article is his record at Baylor, 65-37. He went 3-3 in bowl games. I don't care about his record. I care about the fact that he was at the center of a widespread, campus-wide sexual assault situation that saw him thrown out and apparently not able to return to college football until now. 615-737-1045. You can jump in on the conversation if you like. I think stuff like that bothers me. It truly frustrates me at the end of the day. And I think you just kind of got to eat it to a certain extent. I hate that's the place where we're kind of dropping things off.
A CFL team had too much blowback for hiring him that they had to let go.
How long did he last? Was it just the day? Because you're right, it didn't last very long in the news cycle.
I don't even know if he lasted the press release.
Why are you doing that to the CFL? You just diminishing Canadian football that way? Canadian football too good for Art Briles? At least, the Canadians have standards, it would seem, and Art Briles does not satisfy the Canadian standard of politeness and all of the other virtues that you have to have. As far as NFL stuff is concerned, since we're in the football area, there is some stuff being discussed. The Packers GM spoke to the media yesterday. I know that this is just kind of tangentially relevant for Nashville sports fans. But given the quarterback conversation that's about to spin up with the quarterbacks and who's going to be traded, you saw, I don't know if you saw Tom Pelissero's report the other day that the Bucks are now legitimately exploring the possibility of trading for Russell Wilson. They're very much involved on that. Given the fact, I mean, you and I, Lucas, discovered today that Blaine Gabbert is an unrestricted free agent. So they have zero answers at quarterback right now, not named Kyle Trask or Ryan Griffin. Like, I don't even know who the best backup quarterback available on the market is. And I, personally, I love Blaine as a human. He was one of my favorite guys to interview when he was here in 2000 and was it just 18 that Blaine Gabbert was a quarterback? I think he was here in.
It was 18 that he started that game against Houston and had to start a few games. Right?
No, he started the winning in, which they didn't win against the Colts game.
Yeah, Sunday Night Football
because he knuckleballed the pass right to the linebacker. Ugh. As far as backup quarterbacks on the free agent market are concerned, you're looking at names like Marcus Mariota, Blaine Gabbert. You've got Jameis Winston out there. I think Jameis is probably the best of them, but I think it's going to be interesting, and we'll talk more about this probably tomorrow with Coach Mack, given the way that the quarterback cycle is about to kick up. The general manager of the Green Bay Packers, Brian Gutekunst, who has one of the funniest names in all of sports, Wednesday said he never promised Rodgers he would trade him after the 2021 season. Quote, those are some hypotheticals that I don't think we're going to go down those roads right now. Apparently, he said at a press conference intended to preview next week's NFL scouting combine. In fact, we should have one of those coming up with John Robinson. Not sure what the timeline on that is presently. But with Rodgers and Wilson, with Watson, and as his situation continues to develop, with the fact that the quarterbacks in this class are honestly, piss poor is probably too strong. I don't want to diminish these guys.
Yeah, that's pretty scathing.
Hey, you want to know why that came to mind? Because that's what scouts were saying in Mobile. I had a scout come up to me when we were at the Senior Bowl talking about the idea that because I hadn't been out to practice that day just yet. And so I was going to get my first practice on Thursday and kind of see how the quarterbacks were meting things out and understanding the first day you kind of punt on anyway because there's a lot of different factors that go into why quarterbacks may not look crisp. Different players, different locale, different coaches, everything. But one of the scouts came up to me and was like, yeah, you're going to know which quarterback floundered the most in day one as soon as you set foot on the practice field. And, again, in fairness, the practice field on Thursday was sideways rain that we were experiencing. What are you smiling about? What's wrong?
Charlie and Franklin.
Oh, God.
Did not want to be on the air. He wanted to thank you.
What do you mean?
He wanted to thank us for bringing in the other sports we've brought in this week.
Why didn't he want to be on air? Charlie only wants to be on air when he wants to fight with me?
I don't speak for Charlie. Just passing the message.
That's laugh out loud funny.
Appreciate it, Charlie.
That's a great place to get out. We'll do polls next. Try and get you back in your feel good on this rainy Thursday. If you're driving around, if you're out in the cold for whatever reason, we hope that we've kept you entertained at the very least. The last 3 hours. This is a kick-ass show today, to be honest with you. I was terrified this morning when we got on our pre-show call because we had nothing.
Got you out of your comfort zone.
We had nothing. What? Because we had no football of consequence to talk about.
You know how proud I am of us for not talking about the latest quote unquote on Aaron Rodgers today?
I kind of did that. A little bit.
Barely. You mentioned Gutekunst's name in passing.
Gutekunst. Honestly, that last name scares me a little bit.
Gutekunst.
Easy. Don't get cute. That is not the name to get cute with. Are you insane? Oh, last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045. You can do that. We'll update the polls here in just a second. If you want to hear our interviews with Mickey Dearstone, longtime voice of the Lady Vols, Taylor Lewan, Titans left tackle, or Walker Zimmerman, center back for Nashville SC, you can do that. Check out the podcast, The Buck Reising Show, in your favorite podcast app. I had something that popped up in front of me that I wanted to talk about, and I've since lost track of it. Oh, a correction. Grambling State hired Art Briles as the offensive coordinator under Hugh Jackson. So I do think that's an important clarification for me to make. Somebody had tweeted us with that correction, so many thanks to the audience for getting us back in line. Still, I contend that man should not work again in a situation that involves children, college, high school, or otherwise. No thanks. Give me the polls.
Not now, Jenny. I'm on the radio. Buck Reising gave me a job. Said something about a poll update.
Run,
Hope
Forrest!
That wasn't at that club where you became a folk singer. Anyway, Buck Reising's producer and correspondent has the final poll update. I'm not a smart man, but I know who Lucas Panzica is.
I think that's my favorite one.
What, Forrest Gump?
Yeah. And the music behind it, the piano, I think that's my favorite.
I think the shock value that comes with Rhett Bryan doing Scooby-Doo and Shaggy's voice at the same time. Although the new Star Wars one, he does like 6 different voices in the middle of that. Apparently, Rhett Bryan, by the way, he's basically the voice of the show. Rhett Bryan, the executive producer of Titans Radio, production artist extraordinaire. We have some things in the works, some irons in the fire. The Star Wars one is the only one that Lucas and Rhett wanted to let me listen to before. Well, actually, you surprised me with that on air.
Well, my pitch was it was just Chewbacca. Like, he just comes out with the Chewbacca voice, and you have you don't understand anything he's saying, and that's the entire open.
He just no words, no human words, just the Chewbacca howl.
The Chewbacca voice for a while under the Star Wars music.
It would have been disorienting. You're right. What are the polls?
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, powered by Ford, driven by people. What do you want the Preds to do with Filip Forsberg? 80% say re-sign over trade.
I would say to you that re-signing Filip Forsberg, to me, makes the most sense. Now, I understand that you've got to consider long-term implications for a franchise like this. You've already spent a lot of money on a lot of highly paid players with this core, but if I'm David Poyle, I don't really care about the guy who's coming after me. I appreciate that he's trying to be a steward of the franchise by exploring options, but try and get you a ring, baby. Filip Forsberg is your best player on the roster so far. Keep him around while you can.
Who is the best available free agent quarterback? Jameis Winston, Teddy Bridgewater, Mitchell Trubisky, or Andy Dalton? 57% say it's Winston, 20% say Trubisky, 18% Teddy Two Gloves, 5% Dalton.
Oh, Dalton. Teddy, did you put Teddy Two Gloves in the poll?
I put Teddy Bridgewater.
You just like to say Teddy Two Gloves?
Mm-hmm. The only replies for anyone other than that list were Marcus Mariota.
You tried to contend that Mitch Trubisky is a worse quarterback than Jake Brisket, Jacoby Brissett.
Jake Brisket.
That's exactly his name is Jacoby Brissett, but he plays like Jake Brisket.
It might be a hot take, but I don't know. I just think so little of
it's not even a hot take. It's just a ridiculous. It's just a stupid thing that you said to me this morning.
Just a flamethrower of a take.
Mitch Trubisky was on a team that won 12 games. Jake Brisket couldn't beat bandaged and body casted Marcus Mariota on a Monday Night Football game. It's a ridiculous thing you've just said.
Matt says post-LASIK Winston was actually pretty nice.
Well, also with Sean Payton. But zero wide receivers other than Marquez Callaway was like their best wide receiver this year because Michael Thomas didn't play.
Who is the best ticket in town? 78% say Titans over Preds.
78?
Yeah.
Buddy, and here's the problem. Like, because my social media following, where they have this, where we put the polls on Twitter, it's going to be super Titans heavy. So maybe this is not the most scientific of polls, but 78%. If you asked me that 3 years ago, I would have said the Preds by a mile.
Yeah.
By a mile.
Ton of replies saying Nashville SC. I think Nashville SC can enter the proverbial chat once that stadium opens up on May 1st.
Listen, you got the bright, shiny new thing in town and your team wins, we'll show you love, even if I got to go to Berry Hill to do it.
Who is your favorite network color commentator? 66% say it's Tony Romo, 23% say Collinsworth, 11% Troy Aikman.
Do you have a favorite?
I like Collinsworth. I think he's the most polished as a broadcaster. So me being biased to that effect, I think it's Collinsworth.
I feel like I can't say Chris just because people tell me all the time I sound like Chris and it drives me crazy. It's not like I don't like Chris Collinsworth's voice. I don't think I sound like him. Now here's a guy.
Yeah.
I can't do it. It's probably Aikman for me because I love when Aikman gets disgusted with quarterbacks. Like he just gets tired of Jimmy Garoppolo sailing passes and stuff like that, and he'll kind of let it show in the booth. Then you got Joe Buck just basically doing like a stand-up snide comedy routine next to him. I like that booth a lot. I hate that that's probably going to break up.
What are your expectations for Nashville Soccer Club this season? 41% say win it all. MLS Cup. 26% say just make the playoffs. 19% conference final. 14% conference semifinal.
Listen, I'll take playoffs, but the expectation now, Walker, we asked him that. I don't know that if that's just athlete speak to say, we expect basically he said we expect a very successful season. But yeah. The expectation should be championship.
I think the belief in that locker room and that dressing room is that they're a championship caliber team, and they should be. There's an MVP candidate in Hani Mukhtar, who's one of the betting favorites to win that award. Probably should have won it last season. 2-time MLS Defender of the Year. There's no reason to not have that as one of the expectations listed.
Did you just lean on the music switch? Is that why it went up in my ear?
Yeah, that was an accident. Those are the polls.
Those are the polls. That's the show. It was a great one. Check it out on the podcast. Tomorrow will be fun as well. Lindsay Rowley of Bally Sports, Coach Dave McGinnis, and we think we're going to crank call Ron Slay. Nobody tell him. I'll see you tomorrow.